along the misty shores of the Baltic Sea, where the amber washes up like golden tears of the sun, small villages nestle between the dunes and the dark pine forests. Here, the people live in harmony with the rhythms of the water and the land. The air smells of salt and wood smoke, of drying fish, and an earthy scent of freshly turned soil. This is a world of quiet labor, of hands shaping wood and clay, of nets woven with care, and of bread baked in warm, crackling ovens. The days pass with the tides, the seasons marked not by kings or battles, but by the harvest of the sea and the turning of the soil. Let us step gently into one of these villages, where the houses stand low and sturdy, their thatched roofs sloping like the wings of resting gulls. The walls are built of timber, lashed together with willow withes, the gaps filled with clay and moss to keep out the wind. Smoke curls lazily from a hole in the roof, carrying the scent of burning birchwood into the crisp morning air. The village is small, perhaps no more than a dozen homes clustered together, their doors facing inward for warmth and safety. Around them, wooden fences enclose small plots where goats and sheep graze, their bells chiming softly as they move. Beyond, the fields stretch in patches of green and gold, where barley and rye sway in the wind. But the true life of the village lies by the water. The fishermen rise before dawn, their boats, hollowed out oak trunks or planks stitched together with roots and tar, waiting on the pebbled shore. The nets, woven from flax or hemp, are heavy with the memory of yesterday's catch, now drying on wooden racks in the sun. Inside the houses, the women stir the embers of last night's fire, adding kindling to wake the flames anew. A clay pot sits at the edge of the hearth, filled with a thick porridge of barley and wild herbs. Nearby, a round loaf of dark rye bread cools on a wooden board, its crust crackling as it settles. The day begins slowly, as all days do here. There is no rush, only the steady, familiar work that has shaped generations. A man sits outside his home, carving a new fish hook from deer antler, his knife moving in smooth, practiced strokes. A woman spins wool by the doorway, the spindle twisting between her fingers like a falling leaf. And always, always there is the sea, the whisper of waves, the cry of gulls, the distant splash of a fish breaking the surface. The people here know its moods, its gifts, its dangers. They do not seek to conquer it, only to live beside it, to take what it offers with gratitude and care. As the first light of dawn spills over the Baltic Sea, the fishermen are already at work. The night's chill still lingers in the air, but their hands move with practiced ease, checking nets, coiling ropes, and pushing their boats into the shallows. The water is calm today, a good day for fishing. Their boats, sturdy and broad, are built for these waters. Some are monoxylons, dugout canoes carved from a single oak trunk, smoothed and shaped by fire and adze. Others are clinker built, their overlapping planks fastened with iron nails or flexible spruce roots, sealed with tar to keep the sea at bay. Each vessel is a testament to generations of knowledge, of understanding how the sea moves, how the wood bends, how to stay afloat in waters that can turn fierce without warning. The nets are the fisherman's most precious tools. Woven from twisted flax or hemp, their mesh is just wide enough to let the small fish slip free while trapping the larger ones. Cod, herring, pike, and sometimes salmon. if fortune favors them. The nets are weighted with stones and buoyed by cork or inflated bladders spreading like great underwater curtains beneath the waves. Some fishermen prefer traps instead, wicker baskets or wooden weirs staked into the shallows, where fish swim in but cannot find their way out. Others still use hand lines, hooks carved from bone or antler, baited with scraps of meat or glistening strips of fish. Patience is their greatest skill. They know the sea does not give its bounty quickly. By mid-morning the boats return, their hulls low in the water with the weight of the catch. The women and children wade out to help drag the nets ashore, their hands moving swiftly to untangle flapping silver scales from the knotted fibers. The fish are sorted, some to be eaten fresh, others to be cleaned and laid on wooden racks to dry in the sun and wind. In the smokehouse, a slow fire smolders, its fuel of alder and juniper giving the fish a rich, earthy flavor. The smoke curls around the hanging fillets, preserving them for the long winter months when the sea freezes and the fishing boats stay grounded on the shore. Back in the village, the fishermen mend their nets, their fingers weaving the fibers and patterns passed down from father to son. A broken hook is reshaped, a frayed rope is spliced, a cracked oar is bound with strips of wet leather that will tighten as it dries. There is no waste here. Every scrap of wood, every strand of rope, every bone and shell has its purpose. As the sun begins to sink, the fishermen gather by the shore once more, not to work, but to watch the water. They speak little, their faces turned toward the horizon, reading the waves, the wind, the flight of the gulls. Tomorrow they will go out again, as they always have, as they always will. Beyond the fishing nets and smokehouses, where the land rises gently from the shore, the fields unfold in patches of gold and green. Here the villagers grow their rye and barley, stalks swaying in the wind like a whispering sea of their own. The soil is not rich, nor the harvests plentiful, but the grain is life itself. It will become the dark, dense bread that fills their bellies through the long winters, the porridge that simmers over morning fires, the offering left for the spirits of the land. The work begins in late summer, when the grain stands tall and heavy. Men and women move together through the fields, their sickles flashing in the sun. They cut the stalks in handfuls, leaving the stubble behind to feed the goats and sheep. The grain is bound into sheaves, tied with straw or willow twine, then carried to drying racks, raised platforms where the wind can chase away the last moisture before threshing begins. Once dried, the grain is spread on a clean patch of hard-packed earth, and the flails come out, long wooden sticks hinged with leather, swung in steady, patient beats. Thump, thump, thump. The husks crack open, releasing the precious kernels inside. Children help gather the scattered grain, while the wind, or sometimes a carefully woven winnowing basket, carries away the chaff. Now the grinding begins. Some villages have a communal quern, a heavy flat stone with another rolled over it, turned by hand or, if they are fortunate, by a donkey or ox. More often, each household has its own smaller hand mill, the grain crushed between two stones with a rhythmic circular motion. It is slow work, the kind done in the evening by firelight, the sound of stone on grain blending with the murmur of voices. The flour is coarse, flecked with bits of bran, nothing like the fine white powders of distant lands. But it is theirs, earned from their own soil, ground by their own hands. When mixed with water and a pinch of sourdough saved from the last baking, it becomes a thick, sticky dough. No yeast bubbles here. The bread is leavened only by time and the wild microbes of the air, giving it that familiar tangy depth. The oven is a dome of clay, heated with a fire built inside until the walls glow with trapped warmth. The embers are scraped out, the loaves slid in on a long wooden paddle, and the door sealed with mud or a flat stone. The bake is slow, the heat steady, and soon the scent of roasting grain seeps through the village, a smell so rich and comforting it feels like safety itself. When the loaves emerge, their crusts are dark, almost black in places, the insides dense and chewy. They will keep for weeks if stored well, wrapped in cloth or hung from the rafters. Some will be eaten fresh, dipped in broth or drizzled with honey. Others will be saved for journeys, for lean times, for offerings to the gods of earth and sky. But every bite, every crumb, is a testament to patience, to the quiet, unending work of turning soil and sunlight into sustenance. After the fury of a Baltic storm, when the winds finally still and the waves retreat, the villagers walk the shoreline with eyes cast downward, searching for the sea's hidden gift. Amber, golden, translucent, sometimes no larger than a pea, sometimes as big as a child's fist, these sun-warmed fragments have washed ashore for centuries, tumbled smooth by the restless sea. The best time to gather is early morning, when the low sun glints off the honey-colored pieces nestled among seaweed and driftwood. The villagers move slowly, bending to pluck the amber from the sand, sometimes using woven sieves to sift the shallows. Children wade knee-deep, laughing when they find a prize, holding it up to the light to see the trapped bubbles, the occasional insect or strand of ancient moss suspended inside. Raw amber is dull, its surface clouded by salt and friction, but when rubbed between fingers, warmed by skin, it begins to shine. The villagers polish the larger pieces with fine sand and leather, revealing depths like liquid sunlight. Some will be traded as they are, raw lumps carried far inland by merchants, where southern nobles prize them as magical curiosities. But here, by the Baltic, amber is more than a trade good. It is art, amulet, and offering. In the hands of a carver, amber becomes something greater. Seated by the hearth, a craftsman works a lump with flint and bone tools, flaking away tiny pieces until the form emerges. A curling fish, a bear, a goddess with wide hips and folded arms. The shavings are saved, melted later with hot oil to mend cracks or glue pieces together. Sometimes a needle is used to drill a careful hole, turning the amber into a bead to be strung on linen thread. Amber is magic here. It is sewn into children's clothing to ward off illness, hung above cradles to chase away nightmares. Brides wear it at their throats, warriors carry it in pouches for luck in battle, and when the dead are laid to rest, amber follows them, beads around their necks, small animals clasped in their hands, as if to light their way into the dark. Not all amber leaves the village. Some pieces are kept as heirlooms, passed from mother to daughter, father to son. They grow smoother with each generation, their edges softened by time and touch, their stories woven into the family's lore, To hold one is to feel the weight of centuries, the sea's endless giving, the hands that carved and cherished it, the quiet certainty that long after today's gatherers are gone, the waves will still be rolling golden treasure on to the shore. As evening falls over the fishing village, the houses grow brighter from within, their small, high windows glowing orange with hearth fire. The air outside carries the scent of wood smoke and damp earth, but inside the space is close and warm, thick with the smells of wool, bread, and simmering broth. The houses are low and sturdy, their walls built of horizontal logs, the gaps stuffed with moss and clay to keep out the Baltic winds. The roofs, thatched with reeds from the marshes, slope gently like the backs of sleeping animals. Inside, the floor is packed earth, swept smooth and covered in places with woven rushes or sheepskins. Along the walls, wooden platforms heaped with fur service beds, while shelves hold clay pots, wooden bowls, and precious bundles wrapped in linen. The heart of the home is the hearth, a stone-lined pit in the center of the room, its smoke rising through a hole in the roof. Around it, the family gathers in the evenings. A woman cards wool with a pair of spiky teasels, her fingers pulling the fibers apart in slow, even strokes. An old man whittles a spoon from a piece of maple, the shavings curling into his lap. Children doze under fur blankets, their faces flushed from the fire's warmth. Near the hearth, a clay pot burbles with the evening meal, a stew of barley, dried fish, and wild greens gathered from the forest's edge. Earlier, a flat stone beside the fire was heated to bake thin oat cakes, which now lean in a stack against a wooden platter. The smells mingle: smoke, yeast, the earthy tang of fermented fish sauce drizzled over the stew. The light is dim but comforting. A soapstone lamp glows on a shelf, its wick of twisted flax floating in fish oil. Shadows dance along the walls, the elongated shapes of drying herbs, fishing nets folded for mending, a pair of snowshoes waiting for winter. In one corner, a loom stands silent, its half-finished cloth a promise of future warmth. One by one, the family prepares for sleep. The fire is banked with ashes to keep embers alive till dawn. A last sip of mint tea is taken from a carved wooden cup. Outside, the village is quiet now, save for the occasional bark of a dog or the call of an owl over the marshes. Inside, under the weight of furs and woven blankets, the villagers drift into dreams, their breath slow and even, their bodies resting for another day of wind, water, and work. In the long summer days, when the flax fields ripple blue-green under the Baltic sun, the villagers begin the slow transformation of slender stalks into linen cloth. This is work measured in seasons: the planting, the waiting, the harvesting, and finally, the patient labor of hands turning rough stems into something smooth enough to clothe a child, to cradle a newborn, to shroud the dead. After harvest, the flax is left to red, spread out in morning dew or submerged in slow-moving streams where water loosens the woody outer layers. For days it soaks, changing in scent from grassy green to something earthier, more pungent. When ready, the women gathered to break the stems over wooden boards, their hands stripping away the brittle outer husks to reveal the soft, pale fibers beneath. Combing comes next, The fibers drawn through rows of iron nails to align the strands, remove the last woody bits, and separate the coarse tow from the fine line. The motions are hypnotic. Pull, straighten, smooth, repeat. The best fibers gleam like pale gold in the sunlight, ready to be twisted into thread on drop spindles that twirl like falling maple seeds. Spinning is work for quiet moments, by the hearth in winter, in the shade of the storehouse in summer. The spindle dances at the end of its thread, twisting the fibers tighter and tighter as the spinner's fingers feed them steadily upward. A child learning the craft might produce lumpy, uneven thread at first, but with years comes smoothness, consistency, thread fine enough to sew a wedding shift or weave a chief's tunic. At the loom, the rhythm changes. Feet press pedals to raise alternating warp threads, while hands pass the shuttle back and forth, back and forth. The sound is the village's quiet heartbeat. Thump, scrape, as inch by inch the cloth grows. Simple tabby weaves for everyday tunics, tighter twills for winter cloaks that must shed rain and snow. Cutting and sewing come last. Scissors are precious, often passed down generations. Needles are carved from bone or antler. A mother stitches a daughter's first shift. The seams reinforced to withstand years of wear. A fisherman's trousers are patched at the knee with cloth from his grandfather's cloak, the mending itself now part of the family story. Some cloth remains undyed, the pale flax color of summer fields. Other lengths soak in pots of simmering dyes, yellow from onion skins, gray from birch bark, deep brown from walnut hulls. The rarest is blue, from precious woad traded from distant fields. These colored threads become borders on sleeves, patterns at the hem, tiny signals of identity woven into the very fabric of daily life. Beyond the open fields and the salt-kissed shore, the forest stands, ancient, patient, generous. Here, beneath the towering pines and gnarled oaks, the villagers come to gather what the sea cannot provide. The air is cooler under the canopy, dappled with sunlight that shifts with the wind, and always there is the sound of life, rustling leaves, cracking twigs, the occasional distant snuffle of a wild boar rooting in the underbrush. In late summer and early autumn, the women and children venture into the dappled shade, their baskets half filled already with mushrooms, golden chanterelles that glow like little suns against the moss, sturdy bellates with spongy undersides, sometimes the rare coveted truffle sniffed out by eager dogs. The knowledge of which fungi are safe is passed down in whispers and warnings. This one lifts the pain of childbirth, that one brings visions, but those, never those. They bring only sleep from which none wake. Berry bushes thrive where the trees thin. Bilberries staining fingers blue-black, tart lingonberries that will be pressed under stones to release their ruby juice, sweet wild strawberries no bigger than a thumbnail, but fragrant as honey. The children are tasked with shaking the low-hanging hazel branches, catching the nuts in outspread cloaks before the squirrels steal them all away. Deeper in the forest, where the light grows dim and the air smells of damp earth and decaying leaves, the hunters move silently. Their bows are strung with deer sinew, their arrows fletched with goose feathers. Some set snares of woven horsehair for hares. Others wait motionless near animal trails, breathing slow, becoming just another shadow among the trees. When a tree must be felled, always with a prayer of thanks, always with the promise that its spirit will live on in the things it becomes, the work is slow and deliberate. A broadaxe shapes the trunk into planks that will dry for a year before becoming a boat's hull. Smaller branches are carved into tool handles, spoons, the ribs of fish traps. Even the bark has its uses, woven into baskets, boiled for medicine, or layered into roofing. By the woodpile outside the village, a man works on a half-finished bowl, his adze biting into the linden wood in smooth, practiced strokes. Nearby, a boy rubs a lump of beeswax into the curve of a new bow, the heat of his hand softening the wax until the wood drinks it in. The scent is warm and earthy, nothing like the sharp tang of the sea, but just as much a part of this place. The forest gives, but never carelessly. Its gifts must be understood, respected, never taken in greed. A fallen branch may be gathered freely, but a living tree is only cut when truly needed. Mushrooms are pinched at the stem so the roots remain. Berry bushes are never stripped bare, and always, always there are offerings left behind. A handful of grain, a scrap of cloth, a drizzle of mead poured onto the roots of the oldest oak. The villagers do not count the years as kings and scribes do, with carved runes or inked numerals on parchment. Here, time moves differently, measured by the silver flash of herring returning to the bay, by the first frost that silvers the thatch at dawn, by the height of the midday sun over the sacred oak. Each season has its rites, its quiet markers, its way of turning the wheel forward. At harvest time, when the last sheaf of rye is cut, the women twist its straw into a small, rough figure, the spirit of the grain, caught and preserved so it may return next spring. It hangs near the hearth all winter, watching over the household until it is plowed back into the earth with the first sowing. The children make smaller versions, tied with red thread and tucked into the edges of fields as charms against blight. When the days shrink to their shortest, and the sun seems too weary to climb high in the sky, the villagers carve faces into turnips and beets, grotesque smiles, solemn stares, and place a single candle inside. These glowing guardians are set on doorsteps and fences to keep the longest night at bay. Indoors, the family gathers to share a meal of stored apples, smoked fish, and a special loaf shaped like the sun, its crust scored with radiating lines. Spring returns with the sound of ice breaking on the river, with the first tender shoots of garlic pushing through the wet earth. The young girls weave wreaths of early flowers, pale wood anemones, shy violets, and set them afloat on the current, a gift to the spirits of the water. The older women watch the patterns of the petals as they drift, divining whether the year will bring good fishing, healthy births, or the need for extra stores. Midsummer is for fire and water. At dusk, torches are lit from the sacred hearth and carried in procession to the lakeshore. Offerings are made, a clay cup of honey, a perfect round loaf, a handful of amber beads, lowered into the depths where the spirits are said to dwell. Later, when the bonfire burns low, the young leap over the embers for luck, their shadows stretching long across the trampled grass. None of these rituals are written down. They live in the hands that shape the straw figures, in the voices that sing the old songs just slightly differently than their grandparents did, in the way the village collectively remembers which star rises when the first herring run begins. It is a knowledge worn smooth by generations, like a stone in the riverbed, still holding its shape, but softer now, more at peace with the current. Every few moons, when the roads are dry and the rivers calm, strangers appear at the edge of the village, travelers with dust on their cloaks and news from faraway places. The merchants' carts are heavy with goods, their oxen slow-moving and patient, their arrival stirring the quiet rhythm of fishing and fieldwork into something briefly new. The traders unfold their wares with practiced hands. There are blocks of salt, pale as winter ice, packed in woven reed baskets to keep them dry. There are iron knives, their blades darker and sharper than the local flint, wrapped in wool to prevent rust. From the south come glass beads, cobalt, emerald, ruby, strung on linen threads that catch the light like drops of rain in the sun. In exchange, the villagers offer their own treasures, bundles of otter pelts, soft and water-shedding, blocks of beeswax, fragrant and golden, and always, always amber, raw lumps for the traders to polish elsewhere, or finely carved beads shaped into owls and fish. The haggling is slow, polite. A bronze brooch might be worth 2 measures of salt. A string of amber beads could buy an iron axe head if the trader is in a generous mood. The children linger at the edges wide-eyed. They marvel at the merchants' strange accents, the odd cut of their tunics, the trinkets they wear. A silver ring etched with foreign symbols, a pendant of some southern stone no one here can name. A bold villager might offer a cup of honeyed beer to loosen tongues, and in return the traders share stories of cities where houses stand stacked like firewood, of deserts where the earth burns the feet, of wars fought over crowns the villagers will never see. Some things are too precious for ordinary trade. A length of crimson cloth, soft as a petal, might be reserved for the chieftain's wife. A tiny glass vial of rose oil, all the way from the southern seas, could take years of amber gathering to afford. But even those who don't barter still gain something. The scent of cumin and cinnamon from an open spice sack. The melody of a foreign lullaby hummed by a trader's daughter. The memory of a tale that will be retold at winter feasts for years to come. By evening, the traders are gone, their carts lighter, their purses heavier. The village returns to its rhythms, the mending of nets, the milking of goats, the baking of bread. But here and there, traces remain. A child spinning with a new glass bead hidden in a pocket, a fisherman testing the balance of an iron hook, an old woman rubbing a pinch of southern salt between her fingers, wondering how far it has traveled to reach this quiet shore. As night deepens over the village, the last waking moments unfold like the final threads of a well-woven cloth, loosening, gently unraveling into rest. The hearth fire burns low now, its light flickering weakly across the wooden bowls and clay cups left to dry by its warmth. A single candle, tallow-scented and uneven, gutters in a pool of melted wax near the loom. One by one, the tools of the day are set aside. A half-carved spoon is wrapped in oiled cloth to keep the wood from cracking. The spindle, still holding a few winds of flax thread, is tucked into a basket by the door. A fishing net, mended at last, hangs coiled like a sleeping serpent from its peg. Tomorrow will call them back into service, but for now they rest too. The children are already asleep, curled together under a mound of fox pelts and woven blankets. Their breath comes slow and even, their faces smoothed of daylight's mischief. An old woman hums as she cards a handful of wool for tomorrow's spinning, not for need, but for the comfort of motion, the way the repetitive strokes ease her stiff fingers. Outside, the village is silent, but for the occasional shift of a goat in its pen, the hoot of an owl in the alders. The stars, sharp and bright as ice chips, turn slowly above the smoke holes. The Baltic whispers against the shore, a sound so constant no one hears it unless they listen for it, the breath of the world itself, in and out, in and out. Here and there a last murmur passes between those still awake, a reminder to bank the fire, a murmured wish for good dreams, a hand briefly squeezing another's in the dark. Then stillness settles, thick as the moss lining the house walls. The embers glow faintly, painting faint orange patterns on the sleeping faces, on the tools waiting for dawn, on the amber bead hanging by the door to catch the first light. Epilogue. And so the days turn, as they always have. The fisherman will rise with the tide, the bread will bake, the spindles will spin, the forest will give its mushrooms, the sea its amber, the earth its barley. Nothing here is permanent, not the house